It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, December 8th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that wishes the Flyers could have used the force to get some of those pucks in the net.
Wow, the force. They could use that.
Yeah, well, they tried, I guess. We'll talk about that game versus the Caps. Plus, we're going to look at some trends and talk about prospect Ethan Samson on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, once again. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll keep up to date with the latest episodes and Flyers news. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you're listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Russ, that game is so frustrating because that's a winnable game right there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like one of those games where it was just one mistake really that killed them, and that was just so difficult to experience because the Caps were not playing well at all in that game.
No, they weren't. And Carter Hart played well. The issue, I'm going to say, the issue for me is this is something that goes back to when they hired Torts, and we were like, there are going to be some guys that fit in the system and some guys that have a harder time fitting in, and Travis Sanheim is having a hard time fitting in. And that was just, a play where you got to tie that guy, you got to tie up Strome when he's in the crease so he can't deflect the puck in. I get it. The deflection is not Carter Hart's fault. It's the defenseman's fault. But at the end of the day here, I've been having discussions with people, and it's still, I would say this, just because Travis Sanheim has a contract doesn't mean he won't be traded. Cam York could take his spot someday, and if he's a part of a bigger deal, it could happen. And it might happen only because John Tortorella may never sign off on him. Like, as even the other day when Sanheim had a good offensive game, the coach was still hesitant and he's like, yeah, but so that's just something to watch. As far as this game, yeah, this is, again, you can't blame it on injury. You could blame it on that play. Also, you could blame it on the 6-on-5. It was brutal. Like, that's when,
Yeah.
you've got to take advantage of having the extra guy. And that one I blame on JVR. Like, what do you have, his back turned? I mean, I'm not sure what happened when they tried to get the puck to him, but it went right back the other way. And then things just never got settled after that.
Yeah, let's talk about that 6-on-5
Yeah.
because the other day, the days blend together. So it could have been yesterday, it could have
They
been a week ago.
do.
But we were talking about how the Flyers turtle at the end of games defensively when they're trying to protect a lead, and they're the 5 of the 6-on-5, right?
Right.
But then when they're the 6, they also have problems that they
Yeah.
can't get a solid play together. And just like the PK has actually been pretty good, they can't replicate that when it's 6-on-5 and they're the 5, and they can't replicate what they do well on the power play when they're the 6 of the 6-on-5. And to me, that's something that really they need to focus on that somehow.
They do. I think that's something that you can practice. I think that's something about, now that you're healthier, you should be able to have, the right guys out for that shift. There really is no excuse for it. And yeah, it's just, that's what did him in, like Ovechkin. That's the easiest goal he'll get of his, when he hits 800, he's going to be like, thanks Flyers. That one was easy on the way up.
Yeah, and then I think, JVR was okay in his return. Obviously, he had that, one difficult play at the end of the game, but
Yeah.
that led to the empty netter. But being on power play 2, he got some limited time there. He's still getting, his sea legs back. So
Yes.
I wasn't expecting huge things from him, but at the same time, we'll keep an eye on how he progresses coming back from that injury. But again, that's no excuse in this game because I would say like other than taking too many penalties
Well, that
because
was a big thing. It's just,
yeah,
that could take a starch out of the team too because I don't know, it was like penalty, 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 penalty. It's like, that was in my game story the other night. My five things was just it's too many penalties, and that was a
yeah.
couple of games ago. They haven't fixed that yet.
Yeah, I think that was a huge part of it where they just couldn't really get any momentum going in the first because of all of that time on the penalty kill, even though the penalty kill looked good
Hmm.
for most of the time, you still, like, get fewer opportunities, obviously, when you're down a guy, and I would say, just like I said in the intro, man, their shot accuracy was awful in this game, and they had so many chances and some really good plays, honestly, that just went nowhere because somebody shot wide, whether it's Konechny or Tippett or Hayes, it wasn't really, like, anyone that you could blame it on. It was team wide that they were missing the net completely.
And let's not let's also point out Charlie Lindgren was in net. It wasn't even Darcy Kemper.
Mhm.
So there's your opportunity to really, get some goals, against a goalie that's, okay. I mean, again, it's just you look at the penalties, tripping, tripping, tripping. It's like those are lazy penalties. The McEwen one may be more of a mistake because he did get his stick in the between the blades. That does
Yeah.
happen sometimes. I get it. He was at least forechecking on that. I won't kill him. But these kinds of penalties have to stop. I mean, again, that you have to look squarely at the player and say, "What are you doing?" Uh, face-offs, Lawton was good, but Hayes wasn't. Frost was. So it was a mixed bag on that. Uh, again, in the most meaningless stat in the game, Philly had 33 hits. Big whoop. I mean, it doesn't
That
mean
was
anything.
a no, it did not mean anything
Now they had
in this
22
game.
blocks, which I do think meant something for
No,
a
that
while.
did. It
Yeah,
did at the it's well, that had to do with them being on the penalty kill that whole time early in
yeah,
the game,
yeah,
right? Because you could see they were blocking shots right and left to get through them.
yeah. The interesting thing is, at this point in time, I could see the Flyers putting a lot of their good scorers on the penalty kill just to give them that time because if they're going to have that many penalties, you might as well have guys out there that might be able to score a goal because otherwise their ice time gets cut down a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Farabee had 13 minutes because he doesn't penalty kill. So, that's something, you know, in this game, Owen Tippett registers 3 shots, doesn't get a goal. Farabee registers 2 shots, doesn't get a goal. Cates doesn't have a shot on net. D'Angelo 1 shot on net. He did get an assist. Okay. Um, but this team for goals, it's for hunger, man.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote in my notes as we were watching the game, I was like, "These guys need to practice shooting at targets while someone throws
Yeah,
marshmallows at them,"
I
because
like it.
I think, that's like a little bit of a distraction for the action going on around them to try and like, get something on target, get something in the corner, get something, in that tight space in between the goaltender and the post. I think that that was just for me the biggest part of this game because they easily could have won. Um, again, you said Carter Hart played well. I think he did too. Nothing you can really say there because it wasn't his fault. And I just wish they would win for him sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Sanheim was a -3. That's awful. But again, Kevin Hayes gets a goal, great, and then he's a -2. I think that's going to put him at like -11 for the year. So he's going to have like a
Yeah.
great point year, and he's going to be like -30 or something if this keeps up. It's like it's such a mixed bag.
Yeah, I will say though, his chance toward the end of the game in that delay of game penalty
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
Caps had, he had one really good chance that he was completely robbed, so I wanna give him credit for
That's
that.
fair. Give him credit for that.
But, yeah, I don't know, man. Well, the Flyers have been up and down recently, and certainly we're far enough that there are some trends we can talk about,
Mhm.
and we are going to do that next. But first, we're gonna hear about our friends at BetOnline.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer, esports, and of course the NHL. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like ours, you can run those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you get your podcasts. Russ, the Flyers are going to be playing some tough games coming up. This does not let up. I think the Caps were probably the biggest chance they had to get a win in this stretch of games. And so, just kind of looking at where we are overall, I think that in terms of the things that are trending well, I think we have the power play that's trending well. They're getting some goals in, and I think they're getting good puck movement. It looks organized, it looks functional. It's not just haphazard. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing that's trending well.
The penalty kills trending well too. I mean, special teams have been better lately. That's my trending well.
I hate to ask, what do you think is trending in the wrong direction?
Well, I mean, it's just, even on the broadcast when they say, well, the Flyers are trying to win 2 in a row and I think they gave a date. I mean, you know, it's hard to get behind that. What's not trending well is the 6-on-5 for sure. What's not trending well is guys just, I think, playing smarter. I think that, this isn't a game where there was a ton of mistakes, but there was just enough to cause problems. And again, the Torts left him out there at the end on purpose when it was 3-1, just so they would either get something on net in the 6-on-5 or fail and have the goal go against them. And that is punishment. And
Mhm.
this is not the first time this has happened this year. It's the second or the third time. So you would think the players would kind of respond to that. So the 6-on-5 is definitely the worst thing that's not trending, but the other thing is just you got to play a full 60. It's cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. As far as things trending in the wrong direction, for me, yeah, it's partially like the shooting. The shooting has to get better, and,
Yes.
we talked about that in the first segment with this game in particular against Washington, but it's been, in multiple games where they just haven't had the shot accuracy, like when they get 2-on-1s and they just can't finish the play. And, it's not just good goaltending on the other end.
No.
It's like you really have to take your shot and pick your moments better, and I think overall they could be doing that a lot better. Other things, I think that forwards need to get better engaged defensively to create the breakout.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this a little bit, but I still don't think that they've got it down in the best way possible. That the forwards have to be there to support the defense in order to get clean breakouts to get those opportunities in the first place. So I would like to see them still get a little bit better on that front too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big deal. So the Capitals this year have allowed 30.39 shots per game against, and the Flyers had 30. To me, the message, and we don't know, maybe the coach didn't say this, but the message should have been they give up a lot of shots. Let's make sure we make the most of these shots and make them good scoring chances. And that didn't happen. But this is a team that gives up a lot of shots. Like that's the point. That's why it
Mhm.
was a winnable game because it's not like a team that's only going to give up 20, 22 shots. Like I get it. Then it's like you're a little limited. But you could look at the analytics on this and say, "Oh, you're going to get a lot of chances this game," and they did. And
Right.
remember,
Yeah.
Ovechkin got a post too, crossbar while the
Mhm.
game was 2-1, I think. So that was fortunate. What if that went in?
Yeah, that is a really good point. As far as like individual players, in terms of who's doing well in this system and is trending down versus trending up in terms of how they're playing within the torts framework.
In the torts framework, trending down is Travis Sanheim for sure. I worry about him a little bit now because it's just not doing great. I think Ivan Provorov's starting to trend down again, not minutes wise or anything, but I just think results wise, which I just think right now it's a bad moment for him. I don't think he's having a bad season. Um, I think it's trending down a little bit for Scott Lawton too. I don't know. I mean, he had that good game against Colorado, but he was better before the injury. I don't expect him to score a lot of points, but I don't think he's been as impactful.
I would say that as well. He was definitely on my list that he got off to a really good start this season. That's why he was wearing the A.
Yeah,
And it just feels like he hasn't been that guy since the injury, and that maybe there were too high expectations on him,
yeah,
but at the same time, he just really hasn't had a chance to deliver on what he does best. And I think it's partially usage in this system, but I also think it's partially him that when he's out there, he does have such good vision, and because the breakout has been such a mess, he hasn't been able to do those little things at center ice that he does well in order to contribute better. So
yeah.
I think, for me, that was the main guy. I think you're right about Sanheim to some degree. I think it's a surprise to me that Sanheim isn't fitting in to this
It's
as
a
well as
surprise
I
to me.
thought.
I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah,
And
I
maybe
just
things will
he
get
he would
better.
not have been on my list of guys
No,
that would not do well before the season.
no, and if we're gonna do the trending up now,
Mhm.
Risto is on the trending up. Like he's getting it.
Yeah.
He's doing really
Yeah.
well. He I don't care if he doesn't have a point the whole year. You don't really have him for points. You have him for physical play and playing defense, and he's doing that. And so I think and Morgan Frost is trending up because he even when he's not doing anything offensively to be impactful, he's playing well away from the puck. He's doing well on faceoffs. He's out there, in good chances playing center. He's trending up.
Mhm.
So, especially in this game, it's hard to find guys that are trending up, but just overall, I feel like he is. And Connect, he's trending up. I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, he's had a really good year.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Definitely my guy would have been Morgan Frost on my top on my list of trending up because he had it really rough for a while and he was getting
Yeah.
personally called out. And, he still is to some degree, but I think that he has played his game well, and I think he's, doing the work, especially in the corners, I would say, to try and make things happen. And you cannot deny that his effort is there. And he's doing the things, when you ask Torres or he's asked, what Morgan Frost needs to do, he's doing those things
Yes.
now.
Yeah,
And
no
so he's
question.
directly responding to what he's being asked to do and being generally good at it. So, while the points aren't there, I would say that the effort and the actual mechanics of his play is in a good spot right now.
Hmm. Yep, I agree.
So, if there was one thing that you would tell Torts to work on with this team heading into the road trip, what would it be?
If there was one thing to work on, yeah, I think it's the 6-on-5 because I think they're going to be in that situation a lot coming up, and I think you could give a better effort with that. And if you give a better effort with that, you might win a game or two here or there, here and there because you don't want morale to get too low. So I think that's the biggest thing.
On both sides of it? The 6 and the 5?
Yeah, I mean you have made a good point, but mainly on the six. But yes,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think, that's obviously a good one. I think I would try and reintegrate JVR into the top power play for a little bit. I know they like that top unit, but I just feel like he has this mental thing that if he's on the first unit, he's more successful than when he's
Uh-huh.
on the second unit.
Yeah.
And I know he's just coming back, so it might just take time before he's able to do it, but I would see if there's a way to do that because I just yeah, I really think there's something there that when he's on the first unit, he plays a lot better in that net front position. But, yeah, I think that's it for me. But, we've got a prospect to talk about coming up next, and that is Ethan Samson. Russ, we wanted to talk about Ethan Samson today because he recently was selected to the camp tryout roster for Team Canada for their World Juniors team. And there's a question of whether or not he can actually make the final cut for that team, but it's still a pretty good accomplishment to get that camp invite and get the notice because, especially because he's playing in the WHL, he's on Prince George, and he has, really progressed nicely, I'd say.
Mhm.
If you recall, he was the sixth round pick in 2021. And so for a sixth round pick to get a Team Canada invite, that's pretty good company.
It is. I think if you were a forward, it'd be a lot harder. I think defense is a
Right.
place where there's some opportunity with Team Canada, but still not a great opportunity. But again, just being named. Look, I mean, one thing I was able to look up because the CHL and as a whole and the WHL they hide their minutes, but luckily because of Instat, because I'm subscribed, they show how many minutes a player's playing because again, it shouldn't be a trade secret. He's playing 28 minutes a game,
Oh my
average.
god.
But
Oh
that
my
happens.
god.
But that happens a lot in juniors. Like if you have a
It's true.
good steady defenseman, they will load them up. Like that's what they do. So that's one reason why they're looking at him. He is a really good puck distributor on the power play. I'm not sure they're going to have him for that because it's just the power play is going to have so many guys. His wrist shot's been real good. He is a guy that 5-on-5 can get some 2-on-1s going, and he's pretty gifted with that. Uh, I think that his speed, I started to talk about it at development camp, and it really is better. And I think they've made a tweak or two, and his straight line speed is really good. So I think between the speed, the size, and the minutes, the offense is going to be there for Canada. But those other things are important because you got a guy who you can load minutes onto, invite him in because you never know if there's going to be an injury or if all of a sudden he just looks that good in camp where you're like, all right, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna take him. So yeah, he's done everything you want to do, and I think he's a guy that really improved since Dev Camp too.
Yeah, and he had a really good season last season. I think that's where, his first season post draft really took a huge step forward, getting 43 points in 68 games. And that's pretty good for a defenseman, I gotta say.
It is, but we know the Dub, tends to have
Yeah,
higher point totals. Like we know
sure.
that too. But it is a good year. Hey, I'm not gonna take
Yeah.
it away from him.
Yeah, and this year he's off to a really good start, 6 goals and 13 assists in 23 games, and, he is a huge part of that team and, is the captain
Yes.
for the Cougars this year, and that says a lot about him from a leadership perspective, and, for Team Canada, you can't have too many leaders in the room there, and the same thing for the Flyers, like, somebody with that kind of experience on your decor, I think is a really good thing to have.
Yeah, this is why I always say, and it's really not a cliche, no matter where you get drafted, no matter what round, you can make it to the NHL. It's a lot about you and it's a lot about the team's player development and whatever team you're playing for before you get to the Flyers. All those things matter. And so a 6th round pick is a 6th round pick, and the odds are very great that you're not going to make the NHL. But again, the player doesn't have to believe that. And so that's where a lot of times these guys overcome the odds. So, the good organizations don't care if you're a first rounder or a 7th rounder. They treat everybody the same. They want everybody else to be in the same pond. They want everybody else to get out of the pond and get a small pond to get into the bigger pond. And, right now
Uh-huh.
he's on pace for that. And that's what you want. I know I used like 12 cliches in that, but I had to.
That's okay, I am guilty of that myself. I think, yeah, this is a good shot for him. Again, even if he doesn't make Team Canada, to make an impression. And there's going to be a
Yes.
lot of eyes on him. And it's a big pressure situation. And so just seeing how he handles that, I think is a huge deal for him and like a really pivotal moment. And it could lead to him getting more of an eye on him from the player development people, and then that leads to an advantage at dev camp next year. Like all of this flows into each other, and I think for Ethan, this is a big moment for him.
Yeah, another thing that could help him is, his goalie there, Ty Brennan, was also invited, and that's something
Mm.
where sometimes, if a goalie really is comfortable with a certain defenseman on the ice, like a Samson, that could really bode well if a coach picks up on that. So, and Brennan's really good. I've written about him for elite prospects and such, um, even before his draft year. So that's something where that could work in his favor too. So yeah, he's got a few things going for him. It's, the odds are against him, but just hey, go have a good camp, have a good time. But Flyers fans should know that he is a guy that's right now a little ahead of schedule, and that's it. I'm not going to project what he might be or what he's going to do yet. It's a little early, but at least he's looking good.
I'm assuming he'll get a contract next off season, but
Yeah,
what do you think?
no, he should. I mean, there's no reason at this point, based on these 2 years, goes into dev camp. As long as he shows up, does well, they should give him a contract.
I think so too. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he does at Team Canada camp
Yep.
and for the rest of the year in the WHL. And he's definitely a potential future flyer, I think, at this point, you could say. Uh, there's a lot more potential now than there maybe was when he first got drafted.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's a little bit of a late birthday, so he won't turn 20 until August. So you can't have him play in the AHL like at the end of the year, but that's all
Right.
right. Have him come into dev camp, ready to roll.
Exactly. I want to wrap things up with our Flyers fun thing. In the intro, I alluded to Star Wars and using the Force because it was Star Wars night at the Flyers game. And man, Mio does it again. Do such amazing illustrations for hockey. We've used their stuff before, and
Hmm.
this one is no different. Finally getting to do something for the Flyers, considering that her Twitter handle is Flyers Switch.
Yeah, this is great. I love it. I don't know if Chewbacca would be smiling at Gritty. I think Chewbacca might growl at Gritty, but it's okay. It's an
Yeah.
artist rendition. I'm not going to kill her on it.
Well, the word bubble says "r," so it is
Yeah,
growling.
yeah. He looks a little smiley, but it does say R, so that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That'll do it for today's show. We will be back again tomorrow. The road trip to Vegas and Arizona is looming, so we have a lot to talk about there. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Lockdown Flyers. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and their take of the day. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.